Hello again. Welcome to MLA Format Part 2. This continues on a video I put up earlier in the semester, fittingly titled MLA Format Part 1. Now we're on to Part 2. This is going to delve into research and how you present it. The last video was more about directly related to format, and this is going to talk about how to present and format the research that you use in your paper. All right. So here's a little table of contents. It's kind of vague, but that's okay. We're going to move right along into Part 1, parenthetical citations. Okay, so first of all, what is it? What is a parenthetical citation? It's any time in your paper when you use a source, whether it's Wikipedia, a YouTube video, a magazine, a work of art. Anytime you draw on a source or reference a source, you need to let your reader know. A parenthetical citation lets your reader know. It also not only lets your reader know that you're using a source, but it directs your reader to your works cited page where you list all your sources. We'll get to that in a little bit here. How does it look? How does a parenthetical citation look? Well, it's in parentheses. That's why it's called a parenthetical citation. It comes after your source. So once you've laid out your source, you have your citation in parentheses after your source, but before the period that ends the sentence. Your parenthetical citation has the last name of the author and the page number of your source, like this, with a number of exceptions. When should I use it? The answer is anytime you use a source. That's the answer. Anytime you use a source. Now, if you use a source a few times in one paragraph, you only need to cite that source once because your reader's going to get it. So some common sense can take place here. That's the general rule with parenthetical citations, and you'll see also with the works cited page. It's a common sense approach. How can I let my reader know where my source is from and when I'm citing something? And if you're doing that effectively, then you're doing just fine, okay? So anytime you use a source, whether you're taking a scene from a movie or you're summarizing an article or you've pulled out a quote from an interview. On a side note, when you're writing about those sorts of things, interviews, books, essays, here's something important to note. I may have put this in the last presentation, but I thought I'd bring it up again. Anytime you talk about something like a book, an article, or a movie, here's how these should be formatted in your paper. When you're writing about long works or big stuff, like whole books or movies or albums, that stuff goes in italics. I've given some examples here. When you're referencing something smaller, like not a whole book, but maybe like a chapter of a book, or a story, or a short film, or a song, that goes in quotes. My last example is a good one, Abbey Road, because it's both an album and a song. I think, am I getting that right? I think so. So if I'm writing about an album and a song, another example of that would be Kendrick Lamar's album Damn, also has a song called Damn. So my reader will know the difference between the two because one would be in italics, that would be the album, and one would be in quotes. That would reference the song. All right, so what was the slide we were on? How do I use a parenthetical citation? Okay, so we know when, but how? All right, so let's go back to my examples. If you're paraphrasing a scene from a screenplay, it would look like this. There's the paraphrase, and at the end of that paraphrasing, just because I've seen the movie or read the screenplay doesn't mean I shouldn't cite the source, just because I know it now. So I cite the source. In this case, it's two authors. So you see two last names, Stewart and D'Souza, and then the page number from the screenplay. All right. Or let's say I'm summarizing an article. This is from an article called Consider the Lobster by David Foster Wallace. I would do this. Now, in this case, I already put the author's name in the sentence. Wallace argues that lobsters are too smart to eat. It's a bad sentence. Sorry about that. But I already put his name, so I don't need to put his name again in the parentheses. That's redundant. It doesn't help the reader. The reader already knows that I'm talking about David Foster Wallace, okay? And it sees the parenthetical citation. It knows I'm referring to something. Well, even if I didn't have the page numbers, the reader would know if I'm talking about an author, that author's work will be on our works cited page. Or I might be quoting from an interview. In this case, this is an interview of Kanye West. I'm not citing Kanye West, even though he's the one speaking. I'm citing the person who did the interview, the Kurt Alexander or Big Boy. Okay. And you'll see there's no page numbers. Why? Well, it's not from a book, so I don't need page numbers. In fact, it's from a YouTube video. So that, like I said earlier, common sense. If you need page numbers, they should go there. If it's a YouTube video, you don't need page numbers. You don't need to put chapter titles. Basically, if it's a page number, put a page number. If not, just put an author's last name and you're good to go. All right, works cited page. So I said that your parenthetical citations should point the reader or direct the reader to your works cited page. So what is that? Well, it's basically a list of ingredients. It's what your paper is made of, all the research that you used, all of it. Even if you don't directly cite something in your paper, but you used it as part of your research, you could put it in your works cited page. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but you need all of your research in the works cited page. It's the ingredients of your paper. That's all it is. Where does it go? It's the last page. When you're done writing your essay, you make a page break and you start a new page, and that's where your works cited page go. Well, what does it look like? It has a title. It says the title is works cited page. And then just like the rest of your paper, it's double spaced. And the way the reader could tell the difference between each citation is you use a hanging index. That's a formatting thing. And you alphabetical order all the entries by author's last name. Okay, it looks like this. Those are the hanging indents I was talking about. And you see, if you like scroll your eyes down the left-hand side of the page, all the names or last names are in alphabetical order. Occasionally, there'll be something that doesn't have an author. That should be rare. But if that's the case, it would still go by alphabetical order. And Inconvenient Truth looks like it's out of order, but you don't count the "an" or "the" articles like that. And if you go further down, there's something called Global Warming Economics, no author, just the title. Again, there's a lot of rules for different things you put on your works cited page. We'll get to some, but generally it should look just like this. You see how all the spacing is even also? It's all double spaced. I still have my last name and page number at the top right, and the title is works cited. That's it. So how are entries formatted? Let's go back. Look at all these entries. I told you start with the author's last name, but where do you go from there? Let's get to it. Formatting entries in our works cited page. So, like I said earlier, there's lots of exceptions to this. There's lots of variations on these rules, but generally, your format on your works cited page for all your resources will look like this. The last name and first name of the author, separated by a comma, then a period. The source. If it's an essay, you write down the name of the essay, where that thing appeared. So if it's an essay, did it appear in a book? Did it appear in a magazine? Where did it appear? And then if it has a publisher, you put the publisher's name, when it was published, and what pages. So if you're referencing like a chapter of a book, you'd want to put the pages of that book instead of just the whole book. Looks like this. So you might remember this from earlier in the presentation. I talked about a screenplay. This is how a screenplay citation is formatted. The names, and look at this, 2 authors. So it's formatted last name of one author, comma, their first name, and then the full name of the next author. And you might have multiple authors on your articles. You could have 3, 4, 5 authors. There's different rules for different amounts of authors. You can look those up. So here's the name of the screenplay, where it appeared. It's in this book of the same name. Warner Publishing published it in that year. So I'm not referencing, I'm not pulling just a specific page range from the screenplay, so I don't need to put the page number. What about this? What about my Consider the Lobster? Wallace argues that lobsters are too smart to eat. So if my reader of my essay sees the name Wallace, they should be able to go to my works cited page, go down alphabetically to the letter W and find this entry. Wallace is his last name, comma, David Foster, his first 2 names. The name of the essay is Consider the Lobster. It's an essay, so it's in quotes. It's not a whole book. It appeared in a magazine called Gourmet Magazine. Who published it? Gourmet Magazine. So we don't need to state that twice. August 2004 was when it was published, and here's a page range because it's from a part of that magazine. Let's look at our interview with Kanye West. So here's a quote I used, and if my reader saw this, I wouldn't use the name Big Boy, because even though that's Kurt Alexander's common name, the one we're all used to if we listen to him on the radio, with our MLA format and college papers, we generally use people's like kind of official name. We do the same thing with songwriters. I can't think of Prince's real name, but if his songs are, we're talking about who wrote a song, we generally use like Prince's real name, not Prince, stuff like that. So here we have Kurt Alexander. So we put his last name first, Alexander, comma, Kurt. The name of the interview, right? The source, it's from YouTube, where it appeared, and in this case, we put uploaded by Big Boy TV. We put the date it was uploaded and the URL. All right. So I've mentioned this several times already, but there's lots of variables with these things because there are so many sources you can use, from, like I just said, a YouTube video, to a website, to a comic book, to a work of art. And I'm not going to go over all of those. For one thing, I don't know all of those things. When I need to cite something in MLA format, I just look it up online. So the best way to do that is to look up Al Purdue. Just Google search that. Look up, for example, how to cite a work of art, Al Purdue. And when you do that, you're going to find a resource that will tell you not only the way to put the parenthetical citation in your paper, but how to format your works cited page. It's different for almost everything. So rather than me teach you the 1,000 different ways you can do that, it's better for you just to know where to look for your particular citation. And I think this is enough of a guide to get you started, all right? If you need a little more help, the Learning Center at your school is a great resource, or there's me. I'll try to help you out if I can. I'll probably just Google search it myself. So if that helps, great. If not, I guess go to Al Purdue. I hope this helps you a little bit with understanding how to put your resources into your paper, how to format it correctly. I look forward to seeing what you do with this. And as always, have fun.